Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Ready to stop settling for what is? Monique Verpoort can tell us how. Monique, you've written a book, Is That All There Is? You talk about how we view our lives, and you say we should consider a different way of viewing our life. What's wrong with the way we view it?
Well, in principle, there's nothing wrong with the way we view our lives. However, often we really are our own worst enemy, and we may just have a very false persona of who it is that we are, and what we're able to do or accomplish, or how we show up in our life. And it's really, for people that are quite insecure. I think insecurity is probably one of those feelings that we all have to some degree. I have it. I'm sure you have it. Everybody has it. But when it becomes a real disabling feature of your life and gets in the way of maybe functioning at a level where you want to just be happier, be more content and satisfied with life, then it requires a perception shift in terms of, how your identity. It's really about sort of identity and how we can box ourselves in a certain way, without sort of looking outside the box, if that makes any sense.
Can you tell us how, two people would perceive something different that we might see in our everyday lives, driving, going to school, teaching a class, etc.?
Well, okay, the example that just popped into my head might be, let's say, somebody gives you some feedback. So perhaps, you're doing a presentation or you're having a conversation and, you're expressing your opinion, and somebody says to you, that was pretty good, but there's something I think that maybe is missing or that you might want to do differently. One person can perceive that as a real critique. Oh my gosh, that's a criticism. And it can trigger that insecurity or that piece of us that is, I'm not good enough. And often it's based on a pattern of sort of beliefs that we've carried up until that point. So that could be one person's perception. However, the other person could be going, oh, this is really valuable feedback. This is really going to help me to advance where I want to go, or this is just constructive criticism and I really value it. So that's just a small example. It really is based on sort of the beliefs that drive our perceptions.
And that is a good one. And of course, that happens every day. Someone will say something to us, and it's how we look, I guess, from the inside out. Was that to be critical and say you didn't like my tie? Or are you saying, gee, that's a great suit, a great shirt, but if you got a different colored tie, you'd be world class. So I see where you're going with it. You say our underlying beliefs affect our perceptions. How does that work?
Well, let's say an example that, being somebody who identifies with this, because we most teach what we need to learn, is, for instance, that belief that maybe I'm not deserving of love. That could be something where perhaps we are just, that is such a strong belief that often comes, from childhood, or even, the very early stages of life. And we may carry that belief where we feel that we need to earn people's love. And this is a very subconscious belief, Bill. It's not like, walk around going, oh, I'm not deserving of love. But it's, our perception that perhaps we're not worthy of, it's hard to receive compliments. Somebody says something good. It's really hard to take it in because we don't believe it ourselves. Or if just the way we interact with people, maybe we have a tendency to, we're doing for everybody else. We're giving because we kind of have that perception that somehow they're more valuable than we are. So it just can play in these ways that can just be patterns that we live on a daily basis. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. Everything. Yeah. I told you I love your book, and everything makes great sense because we literally see it every day. And I've had the advantage of reading your book, but for our audience, I want you to explain it to us. A lot of us might say, but I'm 31 years old. Should I really be changing now? Is there something different I could or should be doing? How do you respond to that? I mean, are we rocking the boat? Are you going to change someone radically, or are these more or less minor changes? Let's put it that way.
Well, the answer to that to be is, how much of a problem is this for you? How much is it bothering you? If it's not a big issue in your life, then no. If you're feeling that life is just going the way you want it to go, and you have a good, you're a resilient person, and you've got good coping, skills to get through your life with minor incidents or minor struggle, hey, all the more power to you. But it's really for people that struggle with their sense of worth, that perhaps don't have the healthiest relationship with themselves, first and foremost. And so those people can be carrying this burden with them on a daily basis where they don't need to. And so it's really, those are the people that I think could really benefit from sort of introspection and seeing, why am I reacting this way every single time I'm in this situation, or I'm in with this certain person? Why am I retreating into my shell? There's so many examples of things that come up. So it's really for that person who is at that stage where they're like, you know what, the status quo is not working for me anymore. I am miserable. Something's got to give. And really, those are that's the audience that I'm really trying to address with this.
And as your title says, is that all there is? I guess if we're saying to ourselves, wait, something is missing from life, whether it's a boyfriend or girlfriend, a career that we're really interested in, children, or maybe just doing some charitable work that would kind of be more fulfilling for us or balance out our life a little more. Your book is well titled, Is That All There Is? Mm-hmm. A famous football coach once said, you are what your record says you are. And I was thinking of that when I took notes on your book, because you have a section that says, we are who we believe ourselves to be. Mm-hmm. Well, I believe myself to be George Clooney and Tom Brady, and I'm not 6'4". I don't play football. I'm not as young or as handsome or as rich or anything. I could put that and keep going for the next half hour. So talk about that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's an interesting example that you're bringing up.
I got you laughing, didn't I? Yes.
You did.
Okay.
Yeah, you did. I'm thinking, George Clooney. Yeah, you kind of look like.
Oh, yeah, I look like George Clooney. Thank you very much. You're a good liar.
So really what I meant by that is, I give the example where if let's say you have a habit you want to overcome, or you see yourself as somebody perhaps who is not athletic or doesn't like exercise, and you kind of label yourself, right? Oh, I'm lazy, or I just don't have the stamina to do this, or this is not meant for me. All these kind of stories that we tell ourselves about why we can't do something or why we can't go after something. And so those, again, they're all tied to those beliefs, because we've learned over the years of our lives that, perhaps we weren't very successful when we tried X, Y, or Z. Maybe we were always lousy at baseball in high school, and we always, struck out when it was our turn to be at bat. And so we made that decision that, okay, I'm a lousy baseball player, and, sports are just not my thing. Whereas that could be totally false. That could have been just a situational thing that happened. And that, were you to get yourself into another situation that involves sports, you may actually exceed or do really well. So it's letting go of those beliefs that we formed because of experiences that perhaps don't hold true for us anymore, yet we're still hanging on to those beliefs of the past. So you can't turn into a George Clooney or take on another persona that way, but you certainly can redefine who it is that you are in a much more positive, possibility-enhancing way.
And, when I read that section, what came to mind immediately, we've all had the experience where someone we either worked with or in a school or something, they did something and we said to ourselves, who does that person think they are, that they can go into the principal's office or the boss's office and ask for a raise or a day off or a week off or something? And sure enough, they did. And they got what they asked for. And we're sitting there with our mouth open and I guess part jealous and part like, who do they think they are to do that? And yet they took the step that we were probably afraid to take, to be honest about it. Maybe the boss, it's not likely the boss is going to fire you. He or she might say, no, you're not going to get the time off. or you're not going to get the raise, but this person had the courage to do it, and they did get whatever they're asking for. At this point in the show, we'd like to remind our listeners that you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Our guest today is Monique Verpoort. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes,
Monique,
Verpoort,
I'm sorry.
that's right.
Verpoort, Verpoort. Her book is That All There Is? And Monique, would you tell us the website where we can find out more about the book?
Sure. It's actually, Is This All There Is? Not
I'm sorry.
to be confused with Peggy Lee.
Okay.
Is This All There Is? And it's MoniqueVerpoort.com.
And we'll give you that information again later in the show. And for our regular listeners, if you didn't get the first part of the show, you can always go to nccradio.org. That's nccradio.org. Just look for Secrets of Success. Is This All There Is? By our guest, Monique Verpoort. And you can get the whole show. You can listen to it at your convenience. And you can go back and if you want to take some notes on it and then go out and get the book. Okay, let's find out more from Monique. You talk, I think it's on page 5 in your book, about some of the things we all fear we're missing out on. The famous FOMO, F-O-M-O, fear of missing out. What are some of the things that you find people talk about that they just feel they're missing out in the world?
Well, I think that with definitely with everybody being on social media, that first and foremost, I mean, we often hear that is the first place we, when we look at images of people that seem to have it all together, they're perhaps putting on they're on a nice vacation somewhere, they're having fun, they're surrounded by lots of friends and company, and if when you're looking at this, it's very easy to fall into that place of, oh my gosh, that person's life seems so much more fun, exciting. Wow, they have the freedom to do all these things while here I am, stuck in my one room apartment, with, just going through my daily routine and working and all that. So it's, it's such a false sense of reality. It's not really reality because, of course, we are going to put our best face forward in these situations. It could also be, just maybe colleagues in your workplace, where they're sharing what they did on the weekend. And, perhaps, I'll give you a personal example. I have a colleague who is a very adventurous woman. And, she, on a Monday, I'll say, hey, how was your weekend? And she goes, well, we went rock climbing, or we went camping in the wild, or we went skiing, or what have you. And it's that sense of, wow, that person's life is just so interesting and fulfilling. And so these are just, it's all around us. It's all around, because we often look for what we don't have, right? so that's a human trait.
That's what I was thinking when you said that. If I think of watching TV, everybody must be taking a cruise. They're taking a cruise to Disney World, and they're driving a fantastically upscale car that, between that and the cruise, I think we can safely say that's going to take care of about $50,000 to $75,000 of our income for that year. And of course, most of us don't have that much disposable income because we have other things to take care of, and either running our home or paying the rent or taking care of the children, etc. Does TV give us a false impression of the life we should be leading?
Absolutely. It never ceases to amaze me when I read a sort of behind the stories, story of an actor or somebody that's been on a really popular show. And we have the impression this person has it all together. I mean, obviously they're portraying that. And then you read sort of what the reality is, or all of a sudden you hear a news item that somebody's, taken their life, or somebody's, in rehab, or, some kind of situation. And you're trying to put those two things together, this persona of that person. And then, wow, the desperation that person must have been in their life to take that kind of, measure. So yes, I think we tend to really idealize people that are in the public eye.
And of course, who do we see? The most extreme stories, someone who has a 50,000 square foot home where most of the homes might be about 2,000 square feet, or an apartment is 1,000 square feet. And we say, my gosh, look at the size of that. Of course, we don't know if they're paying the bills or they're being foreclosed. And many times 2 months later or 2 years later, we do find out that some unusual things were happening that might have been caused by finances, or maybe they overextended themselves, let's put it that way, because they felt their career was so much on the upswing and falling down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, good point. We never, ever know what's going on in the lives of people around us, whether it's their relationships, their financial situation. So, I mean, people like to sort of put their best face forward. And, So I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind is like, who are we comparing ourselves against? Is it somebody else or is it within ourselves?
Now, growing up, I was always taught to think of other people, not be selfish. And of course, I taught my children that way also. But is that, let's say, a way of putting things off by not being selfish in a way, or a small way? We don't want to be the person who takes our neighbor's things or, just goes around the office and takes things off other people's desks. But being selfish, looking out for yourself, maybe making sure you get the opportunities that might be there, perhaps asking for the raise, the promotion, or the time off. Have we all been taught to be a little fearful of that? And is that hurting us?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think you're right. I mean, it's wonderful to be able to be there for other people. I mean, I think that's really why we're on this planet is how can we serve other people? I mean, that's really connection with others and having a greater purpose beyond, yourself and being so self-centered in that negative sense is really, I think, what life is all about. But when we take it to an extreme, and this is a socialized concept as well, that when we take it to the extreme that we are there for everybody else, but yet we are sort of on the back burner, or our needs or the regard for ourselves is not as great as for someone else, I think that does us a real disservice, because the real important thing is that we have a sense of self-respect and we honor who we are just as we are. So we always hear the word authenticity, but it really is about showing up and honoring who you are and what is in your best interest. Because, and when I say your best interest, I'm not talking about trampling over everybody else. I mean, that's a whole entirely different conversation. But standing up for yourself and what you believe in and what you need to really, be successful in however you define that. I'm not, success, we often think, okay, it's got to be money and finances and abundance. I don't mean that. I mean, what is your values? What do you hold that's important for you? Honoring what you're made of and what you feel is important is really the key here. So being able to stand up for yourself, that's an act of self-love and a sense of respect for self. So I don't know if that totally answers your question, but
no, it does. It definitely does. You talk about beliefs becoming barriers and stopping us from a more fulfilling life. We get these beliefs, and I guess they come through to us. And of course, we would all like to be the prince or the princess or the major league player or the actress that's on stage. But life takes us in different turns. After college, we might have to go back for our master's, and it's 4 more years of going at night, rushing back to the home. If we're married or if there's children in the plan or taking care of an aging parent, well, that's something we have to do too. And before you know it, we're 29 or 30. Certainly not ancient, but it's, let's say, excuses or barriers to life that may not give us that opportunity we wanted. Maybe we wanted to try medical school or nursing school or something. Do we use these barriers as excuses, or are they legitimate?
I think you have to look at each situation on its own, really, because the examples that you're providing, yes, life happens and we have to roll with it. And we also have to take responsibility for ourselves. So there are certain things I think we don't always have control over. But really, there are a lot of things, too, where we can put self-imposed barriers on us. And some of those beliefs are things like, it's not possible for me to X, Y, Z. I don't deserve to earn a greater salary, or I don't deserve to put myself out there in the world. It's not safe. Safety is a big one there too. Bill, that sense of safety, because our bodies, our biology is always on the lookout for safety. So anything that's sort of not familiar, outside of the comfort zone, it can be very scary. And so we often shut down and we get into that stress response and we don't go for things because fear holds us back. So I think the real key point here is that not having fear be something that stops you from really wanting to go where you want to go. And so it's something, once again, it's often subconscious. We don't realize it. And so it's trying to sort of access those beliefs that keep us stuck when we don't need to be. So yeah, life does happen. Sometimes you got to do stuff you don't want to do. That's a given.
But that's why your book is so good, because you're tapping into the subconscious that we're probably just going down the road every day, not realizing that that's what's holding us back, and we have control over it and can do something. Monique, we want to find out more about how we can start doing things, but at this point, I want to remind our listeners that you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Bill Horan. Our guest today is Monique Verpoort. Her book is This All There Is. Monique, can you tell us the website?
Yes, MoniqueVerpoort.com.
And again, we'll give you that once again before the end of the show. Now, I know in the second portion of your book, you talk about a technique to help us through these times, and the abbreviation is EFT. What does that stand for?
Yeah, it stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, and it's often referred to as EFT tapping for short.
Is this something medical, or is this something we would do kind of like going to the gym?
Well, it's, first maybe I could just tell your audience what that is.
Exactly,
briefly.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's tapping on, it's also referred to as acupuncture without needles, or it's a form of acupressure where you're tapping on certain points on your face and upper torso that are points that are located on certain meridians. So it's really comes to us from ancient Chinese medicine where, when you go to acupuncture, they're putting needles into these different points all over your body, depending on what the physical issue is. And it's sort of the emotional acupuncture. And so it's something that is can be done sort of in a moment of stress and crisis, or it can be used as a daily hygiene technique to sort of tone the nervous system so that the nervous system is more in a parasympathetic nervous system response, so that rest and digest, rather than always being activated, because we're living in a world today where we are constantly in a state of stress because things are changing so much. We're coming through a pandemic and there's still a lot of fallout from that. We don't know what's going to hit us next. I think the term for 2022 is perma-crisis. Because there's one crisis after another, and it's like we're trying to dodge, what's coming up next? How's this going to impact me and my loved ones? And so it's just a great tool when you can rub or tap gently on those points. It actually calms the nervous system down, and it allows for sort of a greater tolerance for whatever's happening outside in the outer world.
Now, if I'm correct, this is also something called meridian tapping. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
And of course, I got that from your book. Can you take us through an example? Let's say I come home and I've had a busy day and somewhat stressful, not a once a year type thing, but something that might happen once a week where it's stressful. There's traffic, it's raining out, etc. And is that a time when I'd use it, or would I use it at work when I get that phone call that just canceled the big sale I made? Or, something negative hit me all of a sudden? When would I use it in life?
All of the above.
Okay.
All of the above. So anytime that you are noticing, like, maybe you're breathing, your heartbeat's going faster, and you're just noticing, like, you're feeling kind of clammy, or, you're just noticing that you're worked up. That's the time to use it. And when you tap on these points, which is, basically, your eyebrow point in the side of your eye, under your nose, under your mouth. I have pictures of this on my website.
Now I'm looking at you, Monique, and just for our audience, you are literally just tapping your eyebrow, under your nose. Where was the other point? Was it your chin? Or?
On your chin, and then your collarbone.
And just honestly tapping, not hitting or punching or anything, but just a light tapping.
Light tapping, you can rub as well. And also at the same time, if you breathe really slowly, like in through your nose and then slowly out through your mouth, while you do this, it actually accelerates the process of calming the nervous system. And just doing a couple of rounds like that can really, bring you down, your biology down quite quickly.
And how long does that typically take someone to do?
Oh my gosh, we're talking probably under 2 minutes, probably under a minute. You could even do it. Some people like to do it when they're they're at a stoplight in their car, if they're kind of, stressed out by traffic, is that, when the light's red, right? Just kind of doing a couple of rounds. You can use your fingertips.
And is this a one time a day thing, or would we do it like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or, when we need it, that type of thing?
It's when you need it. But if you want to sort of set a habit, it's great to do it either first thing in the morning to start off your day, or I love to do it just before I go to sleep, because it calms me down. It helps me get through sort of, the crazy thoughts of the day, and just allows me to kind of, have a deep sigh. I often yawn. This is very typical for people to sigh or yawn, because you're releasing the tension in your body. So morning or night, anything is a habit. You want to do it every day just to remember to use it, because that's the trick, Bill. If you don't have a habit, after, you hear about this, you're not even going to think of using it when you're in a stressful situation. But if you can kind of every day, just you're having your coffee, you're brushing your teeth, whatever, just kind of go through these points to start the day off.
Are there any negatives that we should know about, or can any? I mean, if we did it wrong or tapped too much to the left of a spot or the right, could we do something negative to ourselves?
No, absolutely not. There's not one shred of evidence, and this has been studied for the last 10 years. There's an enormous amount of research on energy psychology, of which this EFT tapping is one sort of leg of this, under this umbrella. And no, nothing like that. In fact, some people like to choose one point in particular and just focus on that, often like the collarbone point, which are sort of, if you bring your hands together and you go down about an inch and an inch over, just sort of tapping or rubbing those points could be your preferred point. And that could, in and of itself, be effective enough for you.
Well, we really have no excuse not to use it and to take an interest in EFT. And is there a time, like if you did exercise, it takes maybe a month to start seeing results? Will we see them within a couple of days, or how long till we start to see some results?
Well, some people actually, when they do a couple of rounds, I've been told, and it happens to me too, that they feel it in that moment. There's a shift, like all of a sudden there's a calmness that comes over them. So that's the beauty of it, is that you will very quickly, if you try this, you should be able to find some kind of positive response to doing it, in terms of calming your body.
Monique, I'm sorry. Thanks for the great advice. We're running out of time, but I wanted to ask you that last question before we wrap up. Give us the website one more time.
It's MoniqueVerpoort.com.
And again, the book is This All There Is? And if you're asking yourself that question, read it and find out what Monique Verpoort has to say. She'll give you some good advice. And again, what do you have to lose? Nothing. Monique, thanks so much for being with us today.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. It was great.
You've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 FM. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Please join us again next week at the same time, when we will continue our journey to success.